Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Kathleen Choi. On today's show, we'll visit with an incredibly inspiring and talented artist, designer, and advocate with a rare neurological disease. And later, we'll meet up with a San Diego doctor whose generous community work is impacting thousands. Those stories and more, coming up next on Asian Pacific Voices. We're honored to introduce you to a special woman who truly redefines strength and resilience through her creativity and advocacy. After being diagnosed with a rare neuromuscular disease, she didn't just survive, she thrived. Through her art, storytelling, and advocacy, she's challenged perceptions of disability and inspired thousands with her message of empowerment and perseverance. Let's meet Kam Redlawsk, a visionary artist, designer, and disability advocate whose personal journey is as powerful as the work she creates.
In life, while I talk a lot about disability, what's important too for me is for people to understand there's more than themselves. There's more stories than the story that they've experienced. There's so much differences, and it's in these differences where it's really important that we see each other's humanity and importance. I was born in Daegu, Korea, and when I was born, my biological mother, she had abandoned me, and so the maternity clinic gave me my Korean name, and then I went and lived in an orphanage for about 4 years until an American family in Michigan had adopted me. And so in 1983, at 4 years old, I flew over to Michigan, and that's where I pretty much stayed and lived pretty much a typical childhood, Midwest childhood. Now in hindsight, I realize a lot of my physical symptoms and weaknesses were beginning in my teenage years. And I was a soccer player, and I just suddenly couldn't run as well, or there was a huge delay in thinking kick, and then my leg wouldn't do it. That kind of started the process of figuring out, oh, now there's something bigger happening here. I have a disability or a progressive disease, and now I need to find out what it is exactly. After I graduated from College of Creative Studies in Detroit for industrial design, that is when I decided to move to California because I knew a lot of jobs existed out here. As well as at the time I was walking with a cane and leg braces, and we all know Michigan has very fun winters, so I would fall quite a bit. And quite a few times I'd be laying on my back just waiting for someone to come help me, in the snow, in the ice. And in this time, what was happening was I had the foot drop, then I needed leg braces, tripping was becoming very common, and it just felt like more and more as the years progressed that I was dragging around this weight. I wasn't walking, I was dragging my body around. It was so much effort. And when I finally did get diagnosed, prior to that, I had about 5 different misdiagnoses. And Mayo Clinic had finally diagnosed me with G&E myopathy in 2003, my junior year of college. And they immediately told me that it was extremely rare. At the time, it was about 1,000 people in the world had it, and that it was very progressive, and that I would eventually end up in a wheelchair, and that I should quit college, and that I should give up on life, and just expect not to live a very fruitful or dynamic life because of this very rare form of muscular dystrophy. So at that time, I kind of knew the future stages of a wheelchair, and ever since, it's done exactly that. It's slowly progressed me towards complete immobility. So I didn't really know what to do with it. All I knew was, after being told by my doctors, my future, not just the medical future, but also my future as a person, I really didn't like that. And I just thought, you're telling me that I am not going to have a life just because of this disability, and I'm going to prove you wrong. So right after that, probably 2 weeks after, I booked a ticket to Korea. And this is my first time going back since I was, an orphan in Korea and had come to America. So it had been quite a few years, and that's when I went to Korea. And that kind of like catapulted the rest of my life and the way I would live it. Just that little decision to decide to fly to my home birth country and fulfill my adventurous spirit kind of was the indicator for the rest of my life and how it was going to play out. Since it was so rare and also genetic, in a lot of communities, especially more ethnocentric communities, having a genetic disease is considered shameful. So a lot of people were hidden. So there was that aspect, as well as the fact, because it's a rare disease, the importance of more people talking about it is even that more important, because a lot of people have never heard of it. And in this process, what I realized what was important was really talking about the personal aspects of this condition and getting other patient voices to talk about it. So I had started a campaign of filming and photographing different patients and building a brochure out of their personal stories. And so this is kind of like the beginning of my advocacy career. And what happened was, after a few years, I ended up becoming more of an independent advocate and talking about the broader aspect of disability. What I soon realized was people don't respond to medical jargon and informal material like that. What they respond to is people's stories. So I began the first blog in the world by someone like me with GNA myopathy, and I began talking more vulnerable and intimate parts of what it's like to live with this type of condition. And that kind of catapulted my writing, my art. After that, I soon became a self-taught illustrator and thought maybe I could use art to visually communicate this very abstract experience that a lot of people can't understand. And I've since expanded into a lot of creative areas that I'm able to tell my story and communicate the experience, which has been really rewarding. I just put out a picture book, which is inspired by my progressive rare disease. And he's this innocent, forlorn, big gray monster who's in, the scene of these creepy trees. And I'm the little girl in the front who just doesn't want him with me. And he can't understand why. So this has expanded into a children's book, a children's picture book. And it is meant to signify or personify the experience. The monster is the struggle that, whether you're disabled, have a chronic illness, or any kind of struggle in life, the thing that seems to follow you around everywhere, but you just don't want. And this is the exact experience of this little girl, who she's very angry at first when she sees this monster. Why are you here? Why, just leave me alone. And then she soon realizes he's never leaving me. He's going to stay here. So in that understanding, as well as experiencing some empathy for this monster, because otherwise he's a very sweet, all he knows is he has to be with me. And so that's not his fault. So what that did was kind of personify the relationship of me and my struggle. And it's created sort of a way to have empathy for yourself or for your own struggles. One of the struggles was sometimes it's not easy being an advocate. Sometimes it's not easy being the focus of stories and things like that. And that's something that I've had to learn to get over with myself, because the work is more important than, my personal feelings about it. So that still sometimes is a struggle, just because, sometimes the struggle was just the advocating alone, in terms of not knowing what you're doing, but just knowing that it's important to do. So especially the type of advocacy I do, which is, it's not just talking about societal barriers or injustices, which is very important, but it's also talking about, what happens behind the scene, what's the reality of disability or the experience. So I think that's important for not just non-disabled society, but also, I speak to disabled people in terms of it's not all empowerment or, you know, all conquering and making triumphs. It's also about the moments that people don't see, but, you know, to also understand that, you know, even if you think someone doesn't see it, it's still valid and important. And so that's kind of why I talk or speak as vulnerably as I do, is because I don't want other people to feel like they're the only ones experiencing that.
Over the years, I mean, obviously I have seen a lot of change. It is a progressive disease, and so it happens slowly but surely. And so it is, you know, it can be difficult to watch, but I'm always confident that Kam will figure it out, or, you know, we'll figure it out together, because I feel like we both have a very, I don't want to say positive, but can-do attitude in terms of like, well, we'll make it work. We have our goals. This is maybe a barrier, but, you know, we'll always figure out how to get to where we want to be. I think being really honest and open with yourself emotionally, I think is a really important aspect of that. And so I think Kam has been able to adapt and deal with the changes emotionally as well. So again, I think that all kind of boils down to like, how do you approach the situation? Are you going to be defeated by it, or are you going to learn to live with it? And I think, again, because Kam has such a great attitude towards it.
I think people tend to usually view disability as only sad. And it's one of the nuances in my advocacy where I am honest about some of the sad times with the difficulties, but there is a duality in that I'm so thankful for what this experience has taught me. And one of the biggest things that it's taught me is you have to live for today. When I was diagnosed with this in 2003, and I was kind of made aware that, you know, my future was not exactly what I expected, I think taking that trip to Korea was kind of like the thing that started off the trajectory of the rest of my life, which was a lot of adventuring, a lot of doing things I probably might not have done had I not been disabled. And that's because I realized, you know, right when I got that diagnosis, you experience sort of the hourglass sand of time, and that you don't have a lot of it. So I took that very seriously. And since, I think that has really served me well, because I've done things like skydive, parasail, scuba dive. We've traveled around the world to many countries in a wheelchair. I did, when I was doing a fundraiser for 6 years called Bike for Kam, my friends were biking from San Francisco to LA to raise awareness for my condition. And in the last year of me running the project in 2016, we built a bucket to attach to my friend's bike, and I went on the journey with them. So we biked down the Pacific Coast Highway together in a plastic bucket. And it's things like that that I'm so grateful for, that while I've had some difficulties, I've also lived a life that probably most people never have or will. And that is because it's something that it's the truth for all of us in terms of there's little time, but not a lot of us are truly comprehending how much little time we do really have here, and how important it is to live. I am Kam Redlawsk. This is my voice.
Now, we shine a spotlight on a true San Diego hero, Dr. Fale, a dedicated physician and community leader whose humanitarian spirit reaches far beyond medicine. Dr. Lay runs free medical clinics serving our homeless populations, mentors the next generation of doctors, and works with shelters like Father Joe's to bring vital care to those most in need. He also spearheads health education programs that give low-income families the tools to live healthier lives. From escaping Vietnam as a young boy with nothing to now impacting thousands across our region, Dr. Fale's efforts embodies the true meaning of healing, hope, and heart.
When I'm asked about my memories of Vietnam, the one that always stands out the most is the day that I met my father. He was in a concentration camp, a labor camp in North Vietnam for many years. For a long time, we didn't even know that whether or not he was alive. The one day that he was released, he literally walked back into my life. That I remember that day vividly. About 2 years after he came home was when we escaped from Vietnam. We escaped in the middle of the night on a boat to Indonesia, and then we got settled in the States, in Roanoke, Virginia. The challenge, I think the main challenge when you first get started in America is money. So that's the biggest thing. My parents couldn't hold any jobs that really allowed us to make enough money to live. So we had to depend largely on government subsidies. We were on welfare, Medi-Cal, food stamps for about 4 years. But even that, we couldn't really afford to share an apartment with anyone. So at one point we actually had to move into a garage and live in a fixed-up garage for as little money as possible to survive. But we did. We made it out, and I ended up, graduating from high school, did well, and went to college at UCLA. So I really am grateful for what my parents went through and what they were able to do with the little that they had. I definitely believe that the whole of my life experience has resulted in me having a lot more resilience than the average American, I would say. I'm also filled with gratitude. So whenever whenever I have an opportunity to give back or pay it forward to somebody, I do so without a thought, because of all that I have compared to where I came from. When we first moved here, my wife and I really wanted to start giving back to our community here in San Diego. And because of our backgrounds, the first community that we wanted to serve or volunteer for are the veterans of America. Both of us are children of former South Vietnamese naval officers. They both graduated from the South Vietnamese Naval Academy. So we have a kinship with the men and women that serve in the armed forces. But from that service, it then brought me to the idea that I can always give more. I know that our homeless population do not get regular health care, so I looked into trying to serve them, and in the process I ended up collaborating with Father Joe villages to bring my medical team into Father Joe's villages and providing medical care near where they are encamped. It started with just medical care, but I've since brought to them food, clothing, dental care, social services, vaccinations, and we also provide free haircuts.
We're out here trying to help people to feel better. They always tell us thank you, they're smiling, and they're always walking off from their haircuts happy.
Heard about this clinic through Dr. Lay through a UCLA alum event. We're both UCLA alum, and really fell in love with it because I'm very passionate about just outreach to the community, particularly the vulnerable and the homeless. So I've loved every moment of volunteering so far. I think this population often is neglected, and there's some things that we take for granted, having a shelter over our heads, just having a safe community, having a place where they feel welcome and heard, and that's just something that really stood out to me since I started volunteering. We have a lot of our patients that come every month. We get to know them very, very well, and we're in a sort of community dynamic that I think feels safe, which is why we have a lot of patients that come back every single month.
I really love doing this. I love teaching the medical students, I love teaching the nurses, and I just love the patients. I've always loved these patients that really don't have anybody else to look over them. So that's why I do this. It brings me a little joy every time.
I think being here and seeing patients in their natural environment, is a lot different. You get an idea of who they are and what they need, and I think sometimes it's more comfortable for them to explain what they need in this setting versus a really clinical, strict setting. So I love it here because you actually get to know people and take care of them.
Like Dr. Lay, we're all refugees. So I'm originally from Vietnam, and my parents fled Vietnam with the fall. And we had host families throughout the country, and we were raised on food stamps and handouts. And so this is a way to give back to the community.
Thank you so much for the generosity of your time. I hope that this is just the beginning of your service to the community. As you progress in your professional development, remember what the lives that you touch today, and hopefully you can continue to foster that sense of service for the remainder of your career.
I realize that there are people in the communities that want to give to various organizations that serve others. They want to make their community a better place, but they just don't know how. Some of them can only give their time. Others can give me a check. They can give me used clothing. They can bring me, they can purchase fresh socks for our homeless population. So it's been very rewarding to bring the community into this grassroots effort to just try to make our community a better place.
I'm just so happy that I could contribute to Dr. Lay's amazing volunteer crew. I mean, we have so much out here, and you know, I'm just happy that we can bridge the gaps and the disparities within healthcare.
I came to the Midway through a friend of mine, Jill Hammonds, who was at the time the membership director, and she invited me to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee in 2019. And through time, I've now been appointed as the new chair of the committee. It's been very rewarding. I've learned a lot. I bring a perspective from my community. And my ask of my committee members is the Midway is a symbol of freedom. It is also a symbol of what our country aspires to be. We are an organization that gets things done, do good for the community, and we have a diverse group of people, employees as well as volunteers, that make the museum very successful. The committee's job is to reach out into our individual communities and bring the Midway to our communities. All the good things that the Midway is trying to do with our educational programs, as well as all our fun events. One of my observations is that there exists a lack of understanding among different ethnic communities in this country. We share a lot more than we are different, and you can't really bridge those small differences unless you interact with individuals. There's a saying that says that it's very hard to hate up close. And so one of the things that I try to do is I try to educate, and through that education, I believe that I'm erasing hate. I am Fa Lay. This is my voice.
Thank you for watching today's show. Please check out more episodes and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Kathleen Choi, and I'll see you next time on Asian Pacific Voices. Until then, take care, everyone. This program was made possible in part by the California Arts Council.